Hello to everybody. This is Raul Abril. I am going to be basically your colleague driving this workshop on the European Interoperability Reference Architecture. For your information, the organization has asked me to, and I am perfectly fine to start right away because it seems that our moderator has some troubles joining us. So the moderator may suddenly interrupt basically my speech, and this is okay for me. So let's be flexible and agile. Very nice word about that. Please be aware that I will be basically focused on my own presentation, so I cannot monitor the chat. So the governance of Q&A is, if you are okay, that questions will be held until the end, and then at the end we will have some time to basically exchange comments or questions. So this is about the governance. Also, as you can see here in the program, we plan to be up to basically close to 2 hours, and not necessarily. I may finish a little bit earlier. Quite frankly, I do not know. In terms of the materials that I am going to use, I am going to use a live presentation. So not presentation, I mean demo. And then please, again, also I wanted to be flexible. And as I have commented, I will not monitor the chat. But if you have any question that you find irresistible, just interrupt me, okay? And then I will try to do my best addressing it. Otherwise, we will hold the questions till the end. All right, a little bit of introduction. I have been basically suggested to introduce a little bit about me, about to share with you what type of background do I have. I, in essence, an engineer. I am an engineer by education, and I am basically my current position and for the last 9 years has been in a public administration, which is the European Commission. And I would say, main responsibility is acting as chief architect of a number of solutions and frameworks, including EIRA, the European Interoperability Reference Architecture, which is the subject of our workshop today. Okay, the organization indeed will publish my contact details. I want to mention that feel free contacting me if you want to explore further, or whatever questions or comments you may have. You are very welcome. I am pretty open for follow-ups. You may know that I am usual suspect in this event. So Bob has the bad habit to invite me. And I am very delighted addressing this audience. A little bit more about my background. I would like to share with you that I have a big backpack, and this is definitely conditioning all my approaches and my perspectives when we talk. And I want you to know that I have been most of my life in the private industry. So the last 9 years is, I would say, a fifth of my professional career. So please be aware that most of my time I have been a doer, a practitioner, and in major IT providers, and I have been very international, and I have been living and working in California and also in Scandinavia. So I am pretty pretty much exposed to the IT management and some of the positions about architecture, and all those experiences definitely has been taken into consideration in EIRA, definitely. So a little bit of background on relation to EIRA. I plan this time to focus basically on EIRA itself and not on slides. This is a significant difference with respect to previous presentations I have shared with you. But I wanted to credit indeed that EIRA started, the European Interoperability Reference Architecture, started around 7 years or 8 years when I joined the European Commission, and basically I was assigned to create a reference architecture for the European Union and the member states in the European Union, specifically for the public administrations in the European Union. And as that, my strategy was I wanted to get the feedback of the best of the best. Okay, so this was the alpha version of EIRA. I want to credit here to 3 colleagues. One was Andres Nuth of Estonia, CIO of Estonia. The other was Max Hjort in Denmark, and finally Vekius, that is one of the co-founders of Archimate in Netherlands, and I was the 4th. Okay, and then we developed the alpha version, and then from there beta, we released 1, and now 1 month ago we released 5.0.0, which is available to you. So if you go to basically to any of the pages that basically our collaborative platform is joined up, and then you type EIRA, essentially then you get a bunch of things, but typically you go here and then you will find basically you go to the collection, and this is basically the landing page. This is the landing page where you have all the information on EIRA, okay, and is announcing 5.0.0 is available for since May 11, so you can freely download it. It's free of charge, and then also the tool, the car tool, which is based, as I will explain to you, in Archi. So this is the landing page where you have all the documentation, and you have different types of links here. We may visit them, and I want to comment that in relation to the tooling, I have I'm going to use one piece of information which is relevant, and is we have 2 dependencies. One is on Archimate, because this is the ontology of EIRA, but the other is the tooling. And the tooling, we are using this open source solution, which is Archi, which is using Eclipse technology. And as you can see here, and this is until the latest version, the before, not the 5.0.0. So we were aligned, and we need to keep an eye on the roadmap of the releases of the open group for Archimate and also for Archi. So in essence, basically, as far as I remember, the latest version of Archi is 4.9.0, which is the one that is used by and basically the car tool. And then EIRA is also basically EIRA 5.0.0 is the latest one, and the tooling, as I am commenting here, is a plugin over Archi. Okay, and this plugin is aligned in 5.0. This is only covering until 4.10. As I said, it was released on May this year. CarTool 5.0 is the cartography tool, which is the name of this plugin overarchy to support EIRA. All right. So this is in relation to the tooling. So let's start little by little doing a walkthrough on EIRA, and I would like to credit that and taking the previous comments about the evolution of EIRA. Today EIRA is a collaborative effort of a lot of contributors from tickets from everywhere, not only in the European Union, but also worldwide. And this is make us everybody very happy because it's open, it's free of charge, and indeed it has a strong focus on Europe, and you will see what is the implication of that, but not at all is restricted to Europe alone. In fact, it's not a limitation. It's something to be considered or basically not to be considered. So this makes EIRA basically today, I would say, as the benchmark in terms of an interoperability reference architecture. In terms of what are the concepts behind EIRA, I would like to, before that, to spend 1 minute in relation to the acronym. I always do, about EIRA. What does EIRA and why EIRA? What is the logic explaining this acronym? Well, EIRA, let's focus in the R and in the A. It means it's a reference architecture. It means that is a meta content design providing the most salient architectural building blocks for what? For a focus. This is what, according to the literature, any reference architecture should have. Should have a focus. Okay. In our case, the focus is the I, which means the interoperability. So it's a reference architecture providing the most salient architectural building blocks. Each of those boxes is an architectural building block that should be considered for specific use cases, and we will go to them, on a focus. And this focus, as I said, is interoperability. If you Google about reference architecture, you will really get a lot of them, and almost an avalanche of different reference architectures, each one, and even competitive ones with the same focus. No, you may find, for example, data warehousing reference architectures. Correct. So it means a reference architecture with a focus on data warehousing or on business analytics, or another focus could be on privacy. For example, the Open Group launched a few years ago their ecosystem for a cloud. Okay, so and as a reference architecture. So this I believe that even I have this. Yeah, let me check if I have. Yes, I have here. So this is, I am sharing with you. This is the cloud ecosystem, basically reference architecture of the Open Group that a previous lead architect that I had, Barry Nauta, created. And this is exactly the same that is published on paper by the Open Group. No, so those are reference architectures that they have a focus. All reference architectures should have a focus. So the other aspect that I would like to understand are two key properties of a thorough reference architecture. The first one is that any reference architecture should have at least two properties. One is an ontology, and the other is an style, an architecture style that the reference architecture, this reference architecture, advocates to. In terms of the ontology, obviously, as you can see here, the ontology of the EIRA is Archimate. So we adhere to the Archimate ontology, which you can see here. And so this means that every architectural building block has a class, so has a property, and this property is basically indicated by the type of class that we are talking about. No, for example, this is a requirement, this is a principle, etc. And this is important because in addition to the meaning of each of architectural building block, when you are creating relationships between them, you cannot create whatever relationship. The ontology has some rules that they have a specific meaning, and you can do only things that are accepted, okay? Associating those architectural building blocks, no? And this is not at all a course for certification on Archimate, but indeed the certification on Archimate is something that is very advisable in case that you want to professionally use modeling using EIRA or, for example, any or Archimate directly. Well, the other property, as we have commented in relation to EIRA and to a reference architecture, any reference architecture, is the architecture style that the reference architecture adheres to. And in the case of EIRA, this architecture style definitely is SOA. So we are talking about just a second, please. We are talking about service-oriented architecture. So there are some basics about that, which in essence means that you consider a piece of code, and this piece of code is delivering at least one service. This service is exposed through basically interfaces. No, in this case, you have those application interfaces that could be a machine-to-machine interface or a human interface. And indeed, this service or several services that are provided by the same code could be called directly. Okay, so this is the essence of a service-oriented architecture. And sometimes some colleagues, they tell me or they ask me, please kill the code. We are not interested in the code. We really want only pay attention to the service. And after this movement started some few years ago, not many, and then the response and the decision was to keep it because it's giving freedom to anyone. No one is forcing in EIRA to consider and to store all the time in your libraries the code, but you could go only to the services. But in this time, at the same time, I mean, there are some users or areas where they really want to have the code. Okay, they want to have the code on their data center, and they require that. So EIRA respects both positions. Okay, so this was just as a short intro on the defining why EIRA, what the letters, the acronym mean. No, we have said that a reference architecture is a content meta model, identifying the most salient architectural building blocks that they are supporting a focus. In this case, is interoperability. And then the last thing I would say that is missing is the E. Why the EIRA? Well, the point is that EIRA is supporting one set of principles that are called the European Interoperability Framework, which we will address in a few minutes, and then those basically European interoperability, these principles in the European interoperability framework, they are basically all of them not only as architectural principles, but basically they are also imposing that we need to respect the requirements that are in legal test. And then definitely all EIRA is aligned with the European Union legislation. Okay, so that's the comment on the E. So for example, let me give you an illustration on what I am saying. If we go to in essence the application, let me go to the application view, and then let me remove a little bit zoom, and then basically I'm going to go to let me try to find trusting services. Let me find trusting services. Okay. Just a second, please. All right. There we go. So here we are, our trusting enablers. I will do a little bit zoom more for your eyes. 100. This is nice. Okay. You can see here that we have a piece of code that is trust service provisioning component. And then this piece of code is providing in this type of 9 services. Okay. E-signature, e-seal creation, so far and so on. No, 9 in total. But please notice something on the. I mean, you don't need to be an expert on electronic identification, but please notice that the language here is atomic. So we have blah 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 service, blah 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 service, blah 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 service. But here we have blah 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 and. Notice this and blah 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 service, and then blah blah blah. And so why in the world in EIRA we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 services that they do not have an and then we have 3 that they have an and. So because you know a very expected observation would be, Raul, why you don't have not only 9 but 12 services where you are decomposing, for example, this one in between eSeal verification service and eSeal validation service, for example. All right. Okay. The response is because this specific language is in the legal text. So in the legal text about what should be the services provided by a digital component, the legislation says about EIDAS, this is the name of the electronic identification access service regulation. It says that it should provide e-signature creation service, comma, e-seal creation service, comma, e-timestamp creation service, comma, e-signature verification and validation service, comma, and so far and so on. So because this and in the legal test, the legislator democratically in the democratic institutions decided to create a regulation with this legal test, and here we are basically the guys that we are, and that's our obligation in the public administration to meet the requirements that are in legal test. So that's, I think, an obvious explanation on why the E of EIRA in this case, no? Just to explain. Okay, so let me just clean a little bit this thing, and let's go back to the to the ontological viewpoint of EIRA, where my intention here is to explain the super high level of the types of architectural building blocks that you have, and also anticipate two big families of use cases that you can afford with EIRA, and every time that I'm talking about EIRA, I'm also talking about the CAR tool, the cartography tool, which is this tooling. Okay, I mean EIRA is implemented as an Archimate model. Okay, that you can import, by the way, not only in Archi. I know users. The other day I met with some fellows in Finland, actually, that they had imported EIRA in architecture, enterprise architecture. So they were using and importing in Spark, and it worked perfectly. So you don't need to go to this tool, which is, as I said, a plugin in Archi. You could go and to import the EIRA model in Enterprise Architect or in any other platform that imports MEF, okay, MEF format, okay, which is the one that we use. I decided not to use the Archimate format. I wanted to use MEF format to basically power brought the ability to import EIRA in any platform that is able to import MEF format. So what are those two types of big families of use cases? So in essence, what can you do? First of all, basically, there are two families. One is the analysis of a digital public solution, and the other is the design of a digital solution. And this brings a very important concept that I want here to, if you allow me, dear colleagues, break a lance in favor of the clarification on what to do or what you can do with EIRA. And I want to differentiate what is a reference architecture with respect to what is an enterprise architecture framework. Okay, I think this is a discussion worth to take. In an enterprise architecture framework, coming from 30 years ago from Sackman, for example, and now we have several alternative approaches, like, for example, TOGAF, and with their ADM, basically cycle. The unit of analysis is essentially an organization. So let me take the classical approach of Sackman, if you remember the pyramid, where basically the unit of analysis is what is my objective? My objective is I want to align IT resources to the company, with a strong private mindset of the private industry. I really want to be very efficient aligning my IT resources to the vision, objectives, strategy of my company. So it's very top down. I mean, very top down, very hierarchical, and then basically you go first with the mission, vision, mission, objectives, indeed, functions, and then of course the paradise of all the colleagues dealing with business process modeling. Okay, enterprise architecture framework, and I'm sorry, but I am a firm believer, has been the paradise of the process modeling. Okay, and I have a strong opinion about that, and I believe that this has been one of the reasons that basically the area, the discipline has been struggling a lot in providing physical, tangible resources. Okay, I mean results. I mean, and this is the unit of analysis typically of enterprise architecture framework. An enterprise architecture framework at the end of the day is a theory providing guidance on how to basically do such alignment. And potentially, as I have commented, I like very much TOCAF. I think it's one of the best that we have nowadays, and because I really like these IDM cycles, and with respect requirements having in the middle, and not forcing you to go sequentially. Basically, it's very pragmatical. You do what you can do, and it's good. Is in my opinion, to be very transparent, is the best that we have. But you know what? Not necessarily. I think that we still need to progress a lot from an engineering perspective in order to be deterministic. Still, there is too much uncertainty when we do designs, and you really, I mean, we really need to be more put and to know more and to do better in order that our designs are more deterministic. And definitely in this case, TOGAF, there is still a lot of room to be deterministic. So this is the AIF, the Enterprise Architecture Framework, basically approaches, and then reference architectures, in this case, EIRA, which is what is of our interest today. The unit of analysis is not a one organization. The unit of analysis is one digital public service that we want to either analyze or we want to design a to-be solution. Okay, so the unit of analysis, we do not pretend here to, make a cathedral or to build the entire organization. No. This is very focused to one digital public service, or if you allow me, we can abstract the basically the public and to say one digital service. Okay, now let's focus a little bit on the left-hand side in terms of what are the aspects, the types, the meta content that we are interested. Well, one thing that I would like you to keep your attention is what is in the middle before entering in both. And what is in the middle are principles. Okay, and this is very important about principles. And I want to make a comment. I am going to improvise completely. I am going to improvise. I am going to say Amazon, just a second, Amazon. I want to bring here my favorite reference in terms of architectural principles, architecture principles. Architectural principles, where are you? This one. I mean, I'm talking about that. Basically, I'm talking about this. Basically, what are the principles that our analysis and our design should be respected? By the way, I met with Danny 3 months ago, and I brought my book, and I said, Danny, I want you to know that 9 years ago when we started EIRA, I was very much inspired by your book, and I got a signature of Danny, so I am very happy about that. But that's what we are talking about in essence when we talk about principles and architectural principles. Okay, so the point is that this is very relevant. Notice that we are using the class of Archimate, so we are modeling principles as principles, classes, and then what we have created, and I want you to know, the European Library of Architectural Principles. So if you do Google, and then you do basically the you do the where are you? Yes, here. If you do basically you do Google and you do ELAP, European Library of Architectural Principles, then you download it. Then you will get, in essence, you will download an Excel, and this Excel I will do a little bit more zoom for your eyes. in essence, is telling you basically what type of categories of architectural principles we are considering. I want to say that I have a lot of faith in a lab, and I predict that this will have a very strong development. So far has been very well received by colleagues in the European Union, at least. And I decided to use inspired taxonomy on ITIL. So you can see here that the type of principles are basically oriented to design of a digital public service, or operations, or basically improvement, or basically delivery. So, for example, let me select one. Let me say design. Just please take that just as a button, no, as an illustration, no. So I'm selecting and filtering only by design. All of them, we are only focusing on business agnostic. So we do not have domain specific. I mean, we don't have principles that are specific to taxes, for example, or security or defense. So they are across any domain, business agnostic. So the principles that we have so far are a bunch of them, at least in design. No, but let me share with you some architectural principles, because these may be some of them surprising you. No, please remember that we call that European. No, for example, I don't think that no one of you will be surprised about administrative simplification. So this is basically highlighting the obvious, not big deal. But notice this one: carbon dioxide e-footprint impact. So it means awareness, at least. So it means that we have in the lab one architectural principle, and is that we need to be able to be aware of that, of the CO2 footprint, and how we are reducing it. All right. And I will tell you another one. For example, code of ethics. Okay, so how do you do that? No, so those are principles that are here in essence. User centricity, etc., etc. No, so forth, so on. And you can explore them. And what is relevant, you have here some explanation about what those principles are, and some the sources where you can find explanations, and even legal tests talking about them. And the important part is that the EIF principles, the European Interoperability Architectural Principles, that you can get them again. The object of this workshop is also to show live how do I get access to the information. So again, the same collaborative platform, join up, and then EIF. Then basically you can get access to the European Interoperability Framework. And then here you have all the principles that we have, and basically the entire European Interoperability Framework. But what I wanted to highlight is that one of the three components of EIF are the principles, no, of EIF, with focusing interoperability. Well, the point that I wanted to comment is that those principles are basically all of them in a singular way in the lab. Okay, so let me clarify that. It's not that a lab says we will respect all the EIF principles. No. It's that each of those principles are singularly identified here, basically. So that's the message that I wanted, and that those principles are indeed influencing basically both use cases: the analysis of the target digital public solution, or the design of digital public service. So let's move now, once we have spent some little time talking about architectural principle, which is the highest possible level of abstraction, and I have shown basically what are those. Then what we have is essentially architectural building blocks. So EIRA is a set, as I said, of architectural building blocks. So for example, here, if I go to each of those are an EIRA architectural building block. So this is what is saying here. And then all of them are aggruped in basically views. And we have 4 views, which is the legal view, the organizational view, the semantical view, and then the technical view with 2 subparts, the application part and infrastructure. But there are 4. And this is coming from the EIF, in essence, because the EIF says that when you are going to implement a digital public service, you need to respect the 4 dimensions of digital public service, which are those 4. Okay, so you need to be indeed holistic, which in essence means that if you are only taking care of the technology or the semantic and you don't care about the governance or the legal interoperability, you will be a freaking chicken at the end, because you will miserably fail. So that's why we are commenting here that we have the EIRA views that are basically grouping the different EIRA architectural building blocks. So then finally, what we are saying here is that you can create, and each architectural building block is nothing more than a functionality that should be respected. And then you can add additional levels of granularity of those architectural building blocks, okay? So this is the message, and I want to use basically an example here for talking about that. And again, I would recommend, I was very much inspired by this book on requirements engineering, to me, one of the best that I have been able to read. And then you can see here a table of contents of actual document on web security. So what are the requirements that a web security application should have, correct? So you can see that you have in this document, you have, it says in the table of contents, you should care about authentication, you should care about session management, about access control, about input validation, so far and so on. So notice that this super high level, this level 1 authentication session management is the equivalent in EIRA to, for example, one of those ABBs. Any ABB that, for example, the ABBs that I was talking before, correct? In terms of any ABB that is basically at this level, for example, integrity verification, etc. They are authentication. You see here, authentication. I'm moving my cursor. This is in essence what is saying here, authentication. So this is level 1. Okay, so this is an ABB in basically in EIRA. In the ontology, is a level 1. Now, looking to a Word document, a typical Word document of requirements specification, you have further granularity, no? So authentication should be done according to level 2, level 2, level 2, level 2. So we have here 6 level 2s. So you have here further detail. This is the level 1, and then you can see 7.1 use of whatever, mutualize. And then finally, we have the real requirement, okay, the lowest level of a requirement. Not entering, sorry, necessarily in a technology specification. Notice that I really like it, the way this document that I had access, because for your information, I was myself in the private sector requirements manager, and this follows the best practices. I remember that this was when I was in California. I think it was in 2001. We were using Requisite Pro then it was bought by Rational and after by IBM. And this was the best practice documenting requirements, no? So a requirement had to be, had to have a unique identifier to allow backtracking. It had to be hierarchical. And then look at this, no? You need to say if it's mandatory or if it's recommended, which is very good, no? The only thing, quite frankly, that I was missing here in this document, just to share with you, is that the colleague did not include a triangular matrix of dependencies, because typically requirements, they have dependencies between them. And then what you don't want is to create a dependency between, for example, a mandatory requirement that is dependent of a recommended requirement, because then if for whatever reason, for example, budget cutting, a recommended requirement is dropped, then the other that are depending on it, then they are hanging up. So a matrix of dependencies between requirements helps to identify this type of problems, no? But in essence, this idea of being what is it done in the industry, being thorough, documenting requirements, is what we are saying exactly here, that you are modeling basically basically your requirements. First level is EIRA itself, then you can add additional requirements. So EIRA is providing the level 1 of the requirements. Okay, so when we actually move to the what an additional benefit of that is that you can apply basically for the definition of your requirements of your digital public service, the reference architecture plays a role on what in the literature of quality management is called as a quality assurance instrument. So it's basically a tool that allows you to not to forget things, to minimize errors, okay? Kind of quality check. And then you can, in addition to use this reference architecture as a quality assurance tool, you can use this approach, which is architecture-driven requirements engineering. And that's exactly what we do with EIRA, and which is documented in this place. We do architecture-driven requirements engineering. What does it mean? It means that you have in EIRA essentially what are the requirements that you can apply, and then this is your checklist to basically construct your requirements of your target digital public service. So EIRA is acting essentially as a quality assurance tool. So this, we were talking about the analysis type of use cases, and then we have another different type of animal, which are you want to design a solution. So when you are designing a solution, the key difference is that you need to be specific in terms of how do you plan to do things, how do you plan to each of those requirements, how do you plan to implement them, and then the key word here are specifications. Okay, and then specifications are we are creating we are providing trying to support decisions on what are the specs that you need to take into consideration when you are creating a solution building block. Basically, we are providing the ELIS. ELIS is the EIRA. In the same way that we have the European Library of Architectural Principles, we have the EIRA Library of Interoperability Specifications that I'm going to show you immediately. So again, you can do basically basically ELIS, join up ELIS, and then you will get, you can download it. And in essence, ELIS I don't have, well, okay. I have access directly from the tool. So because you can access from the tool both the European Library of Architectural Principles, and then you can use in your design, but you can also have access to your basically the EIRA Library of Architectural Principles. And then in essence what you have is a bunch of you have a bunch of specifications, typically most of them open. And then what you have is a mapping of those specifications with basically an ABB. No, so for example, let me give you an example of that. Let me go to open. I will open this. Let me close this thing. Let me go to technical application. No, let me go to the infrastructure. Just a second. No, excuse me. All right, here I am. Okay, infrastructure, correct. So let's assume that I want to understand what are the if you want, I want to add a component which is about identity management. I want to know what are the available specifications, and then it's giving me two. So in essence, what is doing when I click here is launching an SQL to this Excel basically, and then telling me using the mappings what are the available specs that I have mapped to this ABB, and then it's giving me two basically, somewhere 2.0 and WAF 2.0. Okay, and it's up to me to select one of those and to add to the model, which I don't know if we will have time to see, but that's the way that we are linking. Basically, the EIRA Library of Interoperability Specification is nothing more than a mapping of open specs and standards to the existing EIRA ABBs, and you do have access through the CAR tool. Okay, so going back, this is in essence the other part, the family of use cases, which is, as I said, when you are adding specifications and standards. So this is, in essence, the big picture from a super high level perspective of the classes of entities that we are using. The next one that I want to share with you, and I have a special interest in sharing this thing, is this other view, which is okay. There is a lot of meat here. There is a lot of substance. This is a viewpoint talking about what are the key interoperability enablers. So this is an important message, dear colleagues. So what we have here, and I need to explain that with detail, is because there is a lot of information, is why key basically saying ABBs that you need to have in place if you want to assure interoperability. Okay, and this is major words. Okay, so the notice that we have here a type of matrix. So actually it has another name, but I don't want to overcomplicate the explanation. But we have here, in essence, three types of interoperability. When you are addressing interoperability of a digital solution, you need to understand three types of interoperability. One interoperability is basically the structural interoperability, which in essence means how you build up your, it is inside the box. Okay, how, and that's why we are using the Lego icon here. How you are building up your digital public service. So the idea of reusability of already interoperable software components, it fits here perfectly. So this is the idea of promoting reusability. So this is called structural interoperability. Okay, this is looking out inside the box. The other perspective, the other dimension of interoperability is behavioral interoperability, and is when you need to exchange, because obviously you need to exchange data and information and knowledge with other digital public services, because if you don't, then forget about interoperability. You are in your silo, you are comfort in your area of comfort, so forget it. But we are here because you really need to basically you need to exchange your digital public service needs to exchange data information with another digital public service. And if there is a little change in the legal, organizational, semantic of technology environment of your digital public service, then you have an inequality, and this inequality is producing a barrier that will impede that you exchange. So coming back to this type of behavioral interoperability, we need to exchange. Okay, we need to basically to information exchange. That's why we are using this nice icon. And then finally, because you will exchange that with another digital public service, you need some protocols, you need some governance. Okay, when are you going to exchange, in what way, etc. Correct? And those are the governance that they ensure collaboration between them. So the message is you have those three types of you have those three types of interoperability that in essence are those here. So basically what you are saying is that interoperability is essentially managed through three dimensions. That is structural interoperability, behavioral interoperability, and governance interoperability. And that's what you have here. What you have here is you have this rectangle, this grouping of key structural interoperability enablers, then this other, where you have the key behavioral interoperability enablers, and finally this other, which are the key governance interoperability enablers. Okay, so we understand that we need to cover three, and that is not good enough to cover one. We need to really be good in the three because they are key. And then basically, we need to address, according to the EIF, we need to address basically legal goals on interoperability, organizational, semantic, and technical. And then you have this basically score matrix. And then in essence, let me now, this is going to be hopefully easy to understand. Every time that you are looking at the structural, what we are looking for are for catalogs. So here we are looking for catalogs where you can find the legislation, because if you have requirements in the legal text, you need to be able to access to them, you need to be able to query them, you need to be able to know where they are. So you need a legislation catalog to be able to access to your legal requirements in legal text. The same happens with in organizational. You really want to be able to create digital public services that are created from other digital public services. Not necessarily, I'm talking here about microservices because the granularity is too low. So I am not talking about that. I am talking about that if you have electronic identification, this should be a kind of digital public service that should be accessible for any of your digital public services. So your digital public service will have a component which is common and reusable, which is the electronic identification. But this should be accessible. So you really need to have a digital public service catalog. And then the same happens at the basically semantic level, where you need to have to understand where are your data sets, you need to understand what are your ontologies, and then you need to understand when you have trouble, the typical data mappings catalog. Okay, and then finally, when you go to the technology, you need to understand where are your APIs. Basically, what is the catalog of you? What is your catalog of APIs? To find them, you need to understand where are your software components, and then you need also to understand what are your services. And registry service is a way to complicate our lives to name catalog, but the industry call registry service and not catalog. So, but it's in essence the same meaning. So the message is that the key structural interoperability enablers are basically catalogs supporting each of those goals: legal, organizational, semantic, and technical. All right, so let's understand now what are the key interoperability enablers that are supporting exchange of information. So looking outside the black box of a digital public service. Well, according to the EIRA, in the case of legal interoperability, you need legal legislation requirements that are basically on that, on the information, data, and knowledge exchange. So what is the requirements? What are the requirements that you have in your regulation about that? Okay, that's key to have that. And then at the level of organization, you need to understand, and we will address that in a minute when we will go to detail, what is your digital public service delivery model, and what type of the digital public service delivery you have. I mean, the digital public service delivery, notice this is a business interface. This could be done obviously through different ways, no? Different delivery type of, as the class says, this is a business interface. Well, how is implemented this business interface? Is implemented through, different resources that are, for example, is via email, is going to be via chatbot, is going to be via a customer portal. What is the type of interface that we are using, no? And then by digital public service delivery model, this is something that I want to keep your attention, and I'm going to address right now. The digital public service delivery model is basically the model, that you decide for consuming and providing your digital public service, or you forget about, if you don't want to talk about public administration, how are you going to deliver your digital solution? Okay, so in this case, the model, the digital public service delivery model, which could be digital service delivery model, forget about the public aspect. Basically, what is following the following approach: is this delivery that you have, it has to have a consumer and has to be a provider. So you need to identify what are the actors, basically, that are, or the stakeholders that are playing a role, no? In this case, in the case of the public administration, more and more time, we are talking about agents. Those agents can be human or can be, sorry, this is a modeling error. I mean, this is not a washing machine or a vacuum cleaner. This means a node. And you need to basically represent, for example, if you are collaborating with private economic operators to deliver your public digital public service, for example, and what is the structure that you have. Your organizational architecture is what we call digital public service delivery model. Okay, so this is what we are talking here. You need to identify that properly in order to assure basically the organizational interoperability. In terms of key behavioral interoperability enablers from a semantic perspective, you need to basically open data is one of them. Then you need to, it's up to you, not necessarily mandatory, though you may go to virtualization of data sets or to use a distributed ledger, uh, probably based in blockchain. And then finally, we have at the very technical level, you have your interfaces, either machine to machine or human, but also you need to make what type of services you have in terms of data exchange or user experience management service, or basically what is your the workplace digitalization service that you have. And finally, in terms of governance, what you have is agreements, and you may have different type of agreements at the legal perspective between public authorities, or between organizations, or between at the semantic level, or at the technical level, using basically an agreement is to adhere to a protocol, for example. And those are, in essence, the key interoperability enablers, each one belonging to each of those three dimensions, and supporting 4 aspects which are essential according to EIRA. One is the shared legal framework, which is basically the platform where you are sharing all those type of ABBs. So the more that you are sharing, the more legal interoperability that you will achieve. The same happens with governance. The more shareable that is your governance framework constitute about at least those, the more organizational interoperability that you will achieve. And then your shared knowledge base, again, the more is this basically data object that is constituted about those components, and that the larger it is, the more semantic interoperability that you will achieve. And finally, and probably the most common one, at least from what I see, is a shared platform. It's like a shelf in a supermarket, where you have basically software components that are basically cherry picking, that you are taking from this shared platform. Okay, but the more, again, the larger is the shared platform, the more technical interoperability you achieve. And those are, dear colleagues, the most relevant key interoperability enablers that are essential to achieve interoperability. Said that, let's move now then to the high-level viewpoint of EIRA. And then, in essence, the big picture of EIRA is, in essence, as you can see here, I will do a lot of zoom out, but don't be worried. I know that you don't see anything, but just to give you a perspective, that you have here a legal view. Just follow my verbal explanation, and then the organizational view, and then you have here the semantic view, and then the technical. You have the technical application and the technical infrastructure. And what you have is a selection, that's why the viewpoint is called high level, of the those focal ABBs that are explaining the whole story. So I'm going now to remove this zoom to put some relax in your eyes. So what is important is, indeed, in the legal view, we want to have the shared legal framework, the biggest, the better. And then we need to understand what are the requirements in the legal test. And we understand that the legal tests are basically realizing a public policy. Okay. And then we have another area, another view, which is the, sorry, important, very important. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Notice that we are using the word view. Okay. Legal view, organizational view, semantic view. Why? We are using the view. Well, I am taking that from the database management system literature. where a view is a partial set of the whole thing. Okay, like when you have a logical data model in a data from a database, then a view is a subset of it. Okay, so this is a first message. The second message is that we are not hierarchical, so we don't believe in layers, and that's a strong position with respect traditional enterprise architectural framework approaches, where they are extremely hierarchical from top down. We are not. So any architectural building block in any of the views has the same importance that another one. Okay. Okay, if you put a gun over my chest and you say choose, then okay, I will select those four. No, the shared legal framework, and then I will share the shared governance framework. But I hope you what you understand that in terms of granularity, there is no one that is more granular or more abstract than the other. All of them, they have the same granularity. The other message that I wanted to take the opportunity to comment here is that by no way you should imply that you need to start first, that the layout that I am displaying here implies in some way a suggested sequence of doing things. No way. In fact, EIRA promotes and supports a vision that, we do things as we can. Basically, this is the experience. We need to accommodate and be flexible and be opportunistic and do and to start for in the area that is better or less bad. We use in EIRA the term less bad. Okay, so this is about the legal view, and then we have the organizational view. An important association is this one, in the sense that a digital public service is basically implementing a digital business capability, which is telling us the what, and then in support of the public policy. And this is relevant in public administration, because when there is a change in the regulation, you really want to understand what you want to know, what were the associations between the existing digital public services in production supporting what public policies, because if you want to change a legal act, then this will have an impact in your digital public services, and you want to understand what is the impact. Okay, in fact, in the European Union, dear colleagues, we have mandatorily in the Commission, I should say, we need to, any time that we change a comma in the legislation, we need to do an ICT impact assessment. And this has the same meaning that when in the European Union someone wants to build a bridge, that you need to make an environmental impact. And if you don't have that and it's approved, you don't get the funds to build the bridge. The same happens with the ICT impact of new legislation. You need to understand what are the impacts of any change in the legislation from the ICT perspective before doing that, because nowadays we are in an electronic administration, so we really need to be able to be consistent with this meaning. Well, in essence, this is basically the message. The most the particular thing that I wanted to comment here is that notice that you don't see anywhere digital processes. I want to admit that in the alpha version, so before beta, I had a digital process, okay? And then I was suggested to remove it. And the rationale to remove processes was that we don't care at this level on the processes. This is even a technical decision. And in fact, when you are at the level of analyzing requirements, if you are concerned about processes, the experience says that almost everybody are representing processes that are the status quo in essence. So what you have, no one is, or very difficult if you allow me, is modeling the process that you want to have. There, typically is modeling what you have, so the status quo, and then at the end of the, now using sophisticated, nice tools that with very expensive licenses, but they using VPN, for example. But then at the end of the day, you are ending up after, by the way, a bunch of months, you are ending with a number of business process model, and then modeling what you have, and then this is very this is producing a strong bias on basically going to transactional. And if you don't enter at this level, at the level of process, basically what you are in essence, and you concern on the digital business capabilities, instead you are free. When you are detail and implementing your solution, you can be transactional. You could go to your process, indeed, why not, to your processes, or you could go SOA, or you could go to a combination. So again, this has been always a principle using in EIRA, not written. We wanted to give freedom to anyone and not to constrain. So the freedom was basically not to put at this level business process. Let's move to semantic. In the semantic, you will see here that we are considering basically important classes, which are the data, how the data is represented, so what format you have. I apologize, I need to drink a little water, sorry. So we need also to have ontologies to understand the meaning, and then notice that we are differentiating the concept of information. So information is a organizational architectural building block, so not as semantic, in the sense that it depends on the context, and the context is given by the digital business capability. So basically, information is the interpretation of a representation of data according to one ontology in a given digital business capability contents. And this means that the same data with the same representation and the same ontology, but with changing the context, we may have a different information. All right. And then finally, what we have is the technical application, technical view with two parts. One is the atomic representation on what an interoperable digital solution is, which we have already seen, based in SOA. And then, in essence, the infrastructure services that are basically supporting those components. And this is the big view of EIRA. And now I have in a position, let me check a little bit my timing. Where are we? Sorry for a minute. So until 14:15, so this means 20:15. So I am okay. So 6 hours, 20:15. So I am 20 minutes more to go. All right. So let's go now. I have given to you, in essence, basically, if you allow me, the keys to, now you are musicians. I have given you the keys to understand the partiture. Then EIRA is a partiture. So let's go to play music. Let's go to play music. So how we are going to visit the first view, which is the legal view. So all of them, they have the same structure, the same layout. You have in the middle, basically, as the principles, the architectural principles, we know that. And then we have two types of supergroups. In the left, those that are about the governance content of the view, in this case, legal governance content, and about the functional content of the view. And this will be for each of those, all of them. So in this case, again, in the governance, we will have basically governance ABBs, and then in the functional content, we have the things that we have seen before. So we have public policies, and then we have legal acts, which is the text, which is basically realizing this public policy, and they need to be basically indexed in a catalog. And then that's it. An important part of our legal act is what is the level of granularity. And this is the legal view, dear colleagues, nothing more. And then the next one is the organizational view. I am going to remove some zoom to allow you to understand. There is a lot, it's big, but you can see here that we have a middle part, which I am going to do some zoom now for you to see. In the middle part, we have again the same thing. You have the architectural principles and the specs that you may be using. And then finally, basically the share, in this case, the shared governance framework, supporting the governance architectural building blocks that are those here, including in European Union is very important GDPR, the General Data Privacy Regulation, and the concept of data owner is important for us. That's why it's captured. As I told you, EIRA is fully European Union regulation compliance. And then in the functional content, we have what we have seen already before, the digital public service delivery model that you need to identify, and then your digital public service, which has to be indexed and delivered through a business interface. And then basically your information that that is enacted from your data representation and your ontology. So we have already seen most of it. And then we go to the semantic, and then in the semantic, again, I will go to remove the zoom to, again, the same layout. In the left-hand side, the governance ABBs, in the right-hand side, the functional content of semantic. In the middle, again, the same type of ABBs, the principles, and in this case, the shared legal framework. In the governance, what are the different usages that we may have in relation governance? And then in the functional content, we have your data, your representation, and then different types of basically aggregations that we have, or for example, your data mappings with your catalog, or your ontologies with your catalog, or your data sets with your catalogs. And then we have a special type of class, which are virtual data sets. And then metadata. And then this is basically the semantic. And then finally, you have the application part, which is huge. I'm going to remove a lot of zoom you to understand the big idea. The big idea, I will put again, we have the same. We have, let me put back. We have the governance, the functional, the technical application functional content, and then the governance, which is very small, okay? Very small. In the middle, the same. We have the principles, and of course, we have here the other. I will tell you now because this is important. So this is in the functional content. We have the atomic structure, and what is the message? The message is that you create the interoperable digital public solutions respecting the SOA approach, and then you are reusing software components that are taken from a shared platform. And the shared platform, I am going to put a lot of zoom, is huge. Oh, no, sorry. Where are you? The application? Okay, put 25. Okay, you can see here, dear colleagues, all these is the share platform. Okay, and then I'm going, that is basically fitting what are the reusable components that you may take. And then I'm going to visit basically the categories that we have. You have, for example, discovery enablers, where you have your enablers that are allowing you to discover, for example, APIs or web services. And then you have basically orchestration enablers, security enablers, testing enablers, and then you have data exchange enablers, identification and access enablers. Okay, important. All of them are important. Trusting enablers, which we have seen in detail with my example on why the E of European. Data management enablers, privacy enablers. So we are differentiating privacy of security, knowledge discovery enablers, analytic enablers, translation enablers, very important in the European Union, user experience management enablers, digital workplace enablers, e-procurement, very important in public administration tendering, public procurement, yes, enablers, and then financial translation enablers. And this is basically the application part, and then the infrastructure part, and the last one. Well, sorry, I wanted to comment something on the previous one. Where are you? Technical here. So yes, please notice that for the first time 5.00, we are recognizing cloud. So we are recognizing the three levels: the infrastructure as a service, platform, and solution as a service. Okay. And so it means that, and I'm going now to the infrastructure. In the infrastructure, I'm going to remove again. We have the same type of layout, where this is the functional content, and then this is the governance content, which is very small. And then we have this concept where, let me explain to you this thing, and this is the end of my workshop. What you have here is this layer, in essence, which are, I'm going to apply Zoom for you, which are basically services. You see this one, those are technology services. And then we have different type of technology services that are clustered under the label computing, hosting, networking, and data hosting infrastructure technology services. Okay. And then those are basically the input to those services here are basically the input to be used by the piece of code of our solutions. And then what you have here are two types of locations. One is, depending on the model, we are source with the cloud, different approaches that we have, or we are on premises, which is basically this type of thing. Okay, so this is the layer where we are providing the technology services. And what are those? Well, those computing, hosting, network, and data hosting individually are applications, services, data access services, intranet services, remote desktop service, VPN services, and then finally web services. And of course, all of those are served by some nodes. So here you have the application node, or excuse me, the application server, or the data server, or the intranet server, or the remote desktop service, so and so forth. And then inside you have some drill down of the different components that are supporting each of those services. And finally, at the bottom, you have basically the networking that we are using either internally with some interesting comments about the firewalls and where to put them, and also how to use the VPN. And this is a huge change with respect to the previous version of EIRA. I mean, this level of detail that we have in 5.00 is way richer than before. I have still 15 minutes. I just wanted to comment also that we have a viewpoint devoted to APIs, and I have already received some tickets, but okay, there is here a viewpoint which we never had before about how to approach an API, no? And we have already tickets, I want to tell you, okay, right away, which I am very happy. So this means a lot of attention and a lot of view, but I mean, comparing 5.00 with the previous version, there is a lot of, I would say, more help, if you allow me, from, as I said, the quality assurance perspective. Unfortunately, we don't have time now to go to the detail of the use cases in terms of, okay, and now how do we document the requirements of a solution? How do we do stereotyping? Or how do we do the solution design? Okay, this is in a thread out of the limits of this workshop, but I have managed so far to go through the walkthrough, and with that of EIRA. And with that, I finish my workshop. So it's the time. I don't know if we have with us the moderator, but I am not sharing my camera. I just wanted to focus on this thing. I don't monitor the chat. I would kindly ask to the moderator if he's with us
I am.
to basically, all right. Hello.
Hello, Raul. My apologies for showing up late. I got caught in another meeting. Anyway, life happens.
Okay.
And I wanted to thank you. I've learned so much about your journey and the challenges associated with building an enterprise interoperability architecture, or actually a system-wide. But so I have a couple of questions. My background exposed me to a lot of merger and acquisition work, where different organizations were required to come together both technically and every other way. And it was incredibly challenging to change systems, organizations, approval process. Everything was a challenge. Can you talk to me a little bit about, or us a little bit about, what you've done or how the adoptions happened and how you've managed the change management process? Because all of these organizations and countries would have had their own systems, technology, everything would have been different, right? And so over a number of years, you've managed to move incredibly fast and well, I think. But what was that like? Or what could you share about helping adoption?
Well, the first thing is to be honest with you, because I don't want to send a message that this is easy. No way. I mean, I completely sympathize with you.
Nobody would believe you anyway, Raul.
Correct. In terms of the difficulties of doing these things. So those are the difficulties of the legacy, correct? So the thing is that our approach is to be pragmatic and to basically manage coexistence with legacy, and then do steps in the direction of interoperability. Okay, so those you need to do in parallel, basically. And so we need to manage legacy, respect legacy, and then little by little do the right steps in terms of interoperability. And I have decided to illustrate my response to you with this, because here is, in essence, summarizing which is not easy, because the biggest, I mean, during my I think I use the English, the biggest is the more interoperability you achieve. I think I have used this expression, but the point is, let's assume that you have, for example, let's put that maybe I don't have an audience that is technical, that is maybe more process analyst related. Let's assume that we are talking about shared governance framework. Okay, you assume please that this is a kind of container of water. Okay, if this container of water is really full, I mean, it means that you have achieved shared governance between the participants because they are sharing. Doesn't mean that they, in addition to the shared governance assets that they don't have their own specific, but the shared governance that is shared is full, and then it means that all those parties, organizations, whatever, that are having this shared governance framework, they have achieved pretty high level of organizational interoperability, right? Now, it may happen that if you have 3 organizations, maybe 2 of them, they are 50% sharing and another is 25%. So it means that interoperability happens always peer-to-peer, always. And then, unfortunately, the weakest segment in the change is basically setting the level of interoperability that you have. So when out of the 3, the 2 that they have 50, I think I mentioned 50, they have 50%, they will be able to communicate with a 50%. But if you want to communicate one of the 50s with the organization that is 25, they will only be communicating at the 25% of the level. That's the message. So how to achieve that? Basically focusing on this, on everything that you have. So focusing on having common APIs, having catalogs. I mean, this is the easiest part. And by the way, being the easiest part does not mean that is peanuts. I mean, basically what we are saying is, please have a catalog where I can find where your APIs are. Please, where is your registry of services that I can reuse? Please, where are your software components that I can reuse? So forth and so on. So this is, I would say, that the structural interoperability is one of the first steps that you need to do. Okay, and then the second one is basically exchange information. Okay, so I don't have any magic answer. I'm afraid, sorry for disappointing you, but we know what to do, and this is what we do.
Well, I think that is kind of a magic answer, to be honest. Like, the fact that you can respond and illustrate the approach that you're taking, for me at least, provides some comfort that there's a structure and that when we're finished, it's going to make sense. So I can't thank you enough. I think it's fascinating. Are any other countries or entities consulting with you, or do you consult with any others around your approach, and who,
Yes,
if anybody,
basically,
do you learn from? Yeah.
Yeah, but well, and this is very interesting. You know, I can have. I was on the first day. I was on the first day. I was the second keynote speaker. I was presenting the NIFO approach, and you can go. I think I can. I can go to my presentation of Monday, but in essence, I will try to improvise, join up NIFO. I am improvising a lot now. Okay, so please be with me.
That's okay. It's live, so it's expected.
Yeah, that's pretty live. So in essence, but I want to know what are the fact sheets. I am improvising right now. Just a second, please. NIFO. What are the fact sheets? National fact sheets. Just a second. NIFO fact sheets. Because I told, yes, here, NIFO. Okay, good. Look at this. So I today, again, I talk about AIF, I talk about the principles, and then let's go to a member state. For example, Romania. Where are you, Romania? Here. This is the.
Oh, is this your spider diagram? I remember from.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's correct. This spider was about what is the level of fulfillment on those principles, correct?
Yep.
So in essence, correct. So in essence, where are you? It's not this one. Oh.
I saw it, but I know it's there somewhere.
Is there
or Tuesday?
I was not prepared now to do this thing, but the point is that you basically all the member states are consulting with us. What is true is that some member states, they have more. Okay, I will give you an example on what I try to illustrate. And I will use something that was very strong to me. Maybe you remember many years ago the war of Biafra in Africa, and there were a lot of kids dying. So if you go to a kid that is very, harvesting, and you give this little boy a freaking chicken, you will kill him. And the reason is that this little boy cannot absorb the chicken, the freaking chicken. He's harvesting, and you give food, but you need to do that little by little. So in my modest experience, maybe I am wrong, I don't have any empirical study on that, the talent and the knowledge is essential. So you need good people. And good people means knowledgeable people, capable people. So investing in knowledge at the right level is extremely important, because otherwise they cannot absorb what you have. It's so simple like that. So what is important, and this is something that we are learning, because you know what, in my position as chief architect, my moral obligation is to reduce the digital divide between the member states. That's my moral obligation. So what to do? Well, one of the things that we are doing is investing and paying basically economic operators to increase the talent and the digital skills of the colleagues, basically. All right.
Well, I'd love to talk to you more about this another time, because unfortunately, we're almost out of time. We're literally at the last minute.
I will be delighted accepting invitations. As I said at the beginning, if any of you would like to talk to me, I am very open to learn from you also. Okay, this is the basis. We move now. I would say that we know what we do not know. I will tell you that 5 years ago we couldn't say that.
You didn't even know.
But now
that's a brilliant.
But we feel like that. We feel honestly that we do not know a lot. We still need to know a lot, and based on that, that's why I have made a strong. I am not embarrassed comment. For example, when I was talking about TOGAF, saying it's the best thing that we have, is still far away on what we need. Okay, well, because it's not deterministic.
Thank you so much, Raul. We'll have to wrap here because we're literally out of time.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I think it's been a fabulous experience for all of us that have had a chance to participate. And for myself as a non-architect, I have a whole new appreciation of the complexity associated with building and changing digital public services. So thank you so much. And I will be in touch.
Just wanted to say thank you for having me again. And